What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin Show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, J.A. It has arrived. The draft is here. It is happening. Let's go.
It is different because we have done kind of draft shows before. I look back and I'm like, really? This is draft preview number 4? Like, when did this start? Like, you were born in 83, so I know it was after that. But like, doing this a while. And but I thought it's always this cut and dried. Here are the Packers picks, who's on the board. And this is such a different deal because, like, the picks are one part of it, but the draft itself is a whole nother part of it that makes this so intriguing and so delightfully nuts and prideful and all kinds of things, you know?
Is it in the right spot? I know a lot of people are like, Lambeau, it had to be there and down in that region. But if we were going to pick a different spot in Green Bay to really make it Green Bay, where would it be?
Right. If you want to, because, like, it's got to be at Lambeau, and it's there. And I get it. Some people now are mad that everybody that was so thrilled with the draft, and now they're not happy because getting to their driveway and getting around town is a little tough. But listen, this is what happens. We want this to happen, right? This is a good problem, right? This is a good problem that we want to have. But I thought, okay, because as you know, right, I pushed really hard.
You did.
With the Packers to have it in my friend Byron's garage,
right across the street,
the dual garage with the RV garage and with the 2-stall garage that they have there. And that didn't go. And then I was thinking, well, they got kind of a neat, it's not really a band shell, but a cool shelter like at Tank Park just across, over there by Mason. You could do that. Could you set up a really cool thing by like the coal piles on the Fox?
Parking lot of a paper mill. Perfect.
Right. That would be good. I think, though, right, it has to be some sort of a tavern if it's really going to have the feel, because we've got to have a celebratory feel. And so then, like, all the places around Lambeau Field now, to me, are too nice. They're too hip, right? And Doozies and the stadium, like, they're all really nice now. Like, I don't want that. I need a bar. I need a tavern where the family still lives upstairs, someplace else. That's what I need. I just want something, like that. Cram the 32 people in there, but it has to scream Green Bay. So it's got to be a tavern. It's got to be someplace that maybe once in a while I get quarter tapper night. I don't know. But like the Drift Inn would be great. We could do it over the Drift Inn.
Blow people's mind with noodles in their chili.
Yeah. Go over to the Abbey by St. Norbert's. That would kill them, trying to figure that out. Wait,
you could really justify all these places.
This small Catholic liberal arts college, but we're going to the Abbey. Or, hell, just do it at the actual Abbey. That would be fun, too. Can you just see that? Have some young seminary student bringing up the pick? Nobody boo. You wouldn't boo a guy like that.
If anywhere other than Lambeau.
How is that a top 5 list? Where we should have the draft?
Messed up.
Good Lord.
I thought if it was going to be anywhere other than Lambeau, which would have been a mistake, it would have been down at Light Park, downtown, next to Titletown Brewing Company and all that down there, right on the river. But it's a no-brainer where it is. It had to go there.
Put it at Eddie Whip's. There we go, fish. I don't know.
Fish fried, roasted chicken. Oh, yes. It's going to be. I'm excited it's here, man. I'm really, really excited it's here. And I'm excited for today's episode. Like you mentioned, in the past, we've talked to some really big names on a national level. And for this one in Green Bay, we chose the guys that just cover the Green Bay Packers every single day of their life. Matt Schneidman from The Athletic and Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV. If there's guys that know what's going on, it's these dudes.
Yeah. So if we apologize that you don't have Mel Kiper, who has a huge feel for the personnel in the draft, feel like this is better because we need people with a feel for the draft and a feel for the team and a feel for the town. Done. And I think we filled those 3. We checked those 3 boxes pretty well.
We did. The 2024 Packers Draft Special of the Inside Wisconsin Show starts now.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. When you do a Packers draft special, you go to the guys that cover the team literally every day. That's Matt Schneidman. He's the Packers beat writer for The Athletic. What's up, Schneid? Thanks for being here.
Listen, I've seen Rob Domofsky on this show. I've seen Jason Wilde on this show. I had to do 6 hard years in Green Bay before I got the distinguished honor of coming on. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
Trev, what is going on? Everybody says it's a pleasure and it's nice, but everybody expresses just a small disgust. Like, thanks for not mentioning that Wes Hod's been on twice, because that seems to really get under people's skin.
Wes too. Wes and Rob, and they're great. And
Right.
the first time I've met Trevor in person was at a De Pere game. I would go to all of Rob's kids' games with Wes, and I was just thinking of guys who don't, I was.
Listen, Wildy's torn up over it. We're afraid to ask Doherty, because we figure that he would just
he went to Missouri,
open a can of whoop ass that we could not close, being the last guy in. So
right.
But I'm glad you're taking it so well, and we're glad that you're here. It's awesome. What question do you get most about the draft? Why don't they pick a wide receiver, or is Goody going to trade out of the first round? Like, what's the pulse that you get about that people are most concerned about?
That's a good question. I am the type of person who reads all the replies online to stuff I tweet and all the comments on my stories. I can't ignore that stuff. It's just, I can't do it. There seems to be a general pessimism around this team right now from the fan base. And look, I understand that online is not real life. Twitter is not real life. And if you meet someone in person, they have a completely different outlook on the team. But there seems to be a general pessimism, and that general pessimism is around Brian Gutekunst's inability to strike gold on his first round picks. And I'd need to look at the quote unquote hit rate around the league on first round picks, but people do not like, the Lucas Van Ness has taken a couple years to find his own and still is trying to, and how Jordan Morgan didn't really factor in because of an injury, and how Rashawn Gary took a couple years to pan out. So especially after what Goody said this offseason about we need to have a higher sense of urgency. We need to compete for championships right now. We have the requisite cap space to make big moves. And then by fan accounts, they didn't make those splashes in the offseason, even though the Packers would say they did with Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs. But I think the biggest question or thing I see online is, what the heck is Goody doing? We're trying to compete. We haven't gotten any better. And why can we trust him to hit right away on a first-round pick that will impact us in 2025?
And in the past, free agency was a non-starter. There's a famous Mike McCarthy quote that says, "What's free agency like?" Oh, it's free agency? Yeah, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Are we in a little bit of a damned if we do and damned if we don't situation, Matt? Because it feels like if we draft and they do well but don't play in free agency, well, then that's not right? Well, Goody's done a little bit more in free agency, even though it's not the big, heavy hitters, if you will. So what is it? Cake and eat it too? What do we want as Packer fans?
Yeah, not his. It was his second free agency. So the Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner year, that was spending. They had the money and they spent it. The next couple years, they couldn't really spend because of the Aaron Rodgers contract. And now that they have more spending space, last year they obviously struck gold on two guys, in Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. And then you can count me as one of the people who, in January, when Goody said, we're in our best cap situation in 2 or 3 years, that made me think, okay, they're going to make some splashes. But this was not widely regarded as a strong free agent class. And Goody basically said that when we talked to him in Palm Beach last week at the owners' meetings. He said, you're not just going to spend money to spend money. They got a guy on the offensive line in Aaron Banks who allows them to move Elton Jenkins to center, replacing Josh Myers. And, we've heard them say a million times, we want to get our best 5 out there. They think that gives them a better 5 than just, say, plugging Sean Ryan at center and moving Jordan Morgan not moving Jordan Morgan to right guard, but, having him be the only right guard. And then Nate Hobbs gives them some versatility in the secondary. And in case Jair Alexander, which I'm sure we'll get into later, in case he doesn't come back, then Nate Hobbs can play outside. So I think it was more of a selective spending in free agency because they didn't think this free agency class was all that good. But yeah, anytime you have money and you don't just go gangbusters throwing bags of money at people, the fans are not going to be thrilled. I think, online discourse about the Myles Garretts and the Trey Hendricksons and the Max Crosbys were never all that realistic. And I think the Packers not doing that or spending on the top free agents kind of told fans, okay, the Packers aren't going all in, or they don't really mean, taking that next step to compete with the Lions, the Vikings, the Eagles. But I don't mind the way they went about the offseason. If I'm a Packer fan, they have left themselves entering the draft without many glaring holes. You don't want to fill glaring holes in the draft and rely on rookies to start day one. That's what the teams in the top 5 and top 10 are doing. Packers haven't often been there. So they're in a spot entering the draft where they can, draft for depth. And that's kind of the spot you want to be in.
So I'm with you that so many people wanted something to go on. You're like, it'd be great, but these guys that everybody pipe dream never came on the market in terms of being free agents. Is there any chance, because as I look at the roster, I'm like, okay, they've got all this money, because sometimes you got to hold some back because we got a player that's coming due, and I want to make sure I don't even know they have anybody on this roster, though, that you're holding money back, that you're waiting to splash big cash on, that I see.
Well, there's one. Zach Tom, I think, is the one that they're definitely going to give an extension to here. He was third among right tackles in all-pro voting last year behind Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell. So he is, by voters at least, considered a top 3 right tackle in the NFL. I think he's a guy you absolutely have to extend before training camp. He will be entering the final year of his rookie deal, and you don't want to take the risk like what happened with Devontae Adams, where the player and agent say, we're not negotiating during the season, and then you risk him walking in free agency. So you got to extend him. Quay Walker is an interesting situation because, you can't, I'm trying to think. The 5th-year option deadline is the first week of May, I believe. So the Packers have to decide in the next 3 or so weeks if they're going to extend the 5th year, or not extend, exercise the 5th-year options of Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker. For Quay Walker, that would guarantee him in 2026 more than $16 million. That would make him, I think, the 4th highest paid middle linebacker in terms of average annual salary, behind Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, and Tremaine Edmonds, if I'm not mistaken. You can't do that. So what I think the Packers are going to do is try and reach a, beneficial extension with Quay Walker. When I say beneficial, I mean, a multi-year thing, because Goody said he wants Quay here for the long term, but not something that's going to pay him $16 million a year. And then Devontae Wyatt, do you extend him? If you exercise his 5th-year option, it would put him, I think, 13th highest paid defensive tackle, somewhere in the teens there. It would guarantee him around $13 million a year in 2026. And we can get into it later about Goody's first-round picks. I'm not ready to say that Devontae Wyatt or Quay Walker are definite hits yet. I'm just not. I mean, they've both flashed here and there, but those aren't guys who you sit here and say you absolutely have to extend them. Zach Tom is one of those guys, though, I think.
Do you think we can finally put to bed that there's not a chance we're going to draft a receiver in the first round, or is that something that's going to happen this year?
Lives forever. We'll live forever.
It just seems like something that comes up in conversation every year with the same expectation, and then it doesn't happen, and everybody's disappointed. And I'm back here going, duh, this is not going to happen.
It's the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, I think year after year now, it's just, okay, well, it hasn't happened. It's not going to. I'll believe it when it does. But I think there's a legitimate chance this year. You have to have, obviously, the draft board and the strengths of the position group in this year's draft class match up with need. And, the Packers' 2, I would say, primary needs in this draft are a pass rusher, whether that's on the edge or interior, and wide receiver. I don't think and I'm talking about first-round needs. I don't think they need a corner in the first round, even if Jair isn't on the team. And I don't think they need an offensive lineman, because I don't think you want to, draft a 7th offensive lineman in the first round. They have 6 guys in Rasheed Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Ryan, Morgan, and Tom. So I would say wide receiver and pass rusher are the 2 primary needs. And you never want to read too much into these top 30 visits, but they've had Ibuka from Ohio State and Matthew Golden from Texas. They've had their eyes on them, whether it's at pro days or 30 visits in this pre-draft process. And then, the ESPN report that came out that Brian Gutekunst was the only GM at Tetaroa McMillan's private workout in Arizona. So, I mean, if they trade up for a wide receiver, that draft crowd is going to go berserk. next Thursday, or not next Thursday, in 2 Thursdays. But all the pre-draft signs let you know that they're at least interested in these first-round receivers. And look, they've tried to draft receivers in the first round before. I sat down with Goody for a Jordan Love story before last season, and he straight up told me on the record they tried to trade up before they drafted Jordan Love, and I'm pretty sure that was for Brandon Ayuk or Justin Jefferson in 2020. And the Vikings weren't going to let them do that, and the 49ers wanted Ayuk, so they weren't going to let the Packers trade up. So it's not for a lack of trying, I don't think.
Man, do I have things that I disagree with there. No, no, because I'm Al Davis. I will take a corner and offensive line until I have 50 of them, and that's fine by me when it comes through.
Yep.
I'm with you on the wide receiver thing. They can't seem to figure that out. But I just think even because I think, by the way, the next thing other than are they going to draft wide receiver is why is Jair Alexander still on the roster? We won't get that. So where do they go at 23? Can they get a guy who can't, as you said, we got to match up needs and wants at 23? What do we think is there? Because I've only read 17,000 mock drafts and none of them agree who's going to be around at 23.
It's all guessing. I think.
No, it's not. Mel knows everything. Not guess.
I think they take a wide receiver this year. I think this is the year because the need is just so glaring. Not only because Christian Watson is going to miss at least half of the season, and you don't have that take the top off a defense threat on the team.
They didn't use him for that anyway. He was doing nothing. Like, what do you get the idea? In theory, that's perfect, but they didn't use him like that.
Right. And they'll tell you that Christian Watson can do everything. He can play every position, and I think he can. But, he kind of put up those MVS-type stat lines of 4 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown every couple weeks. And obviously the big question, and we don't have to harp on it, is do the Packers need a proven number one wide receiver? Or even if he's not proven yet, do they need a true number one wide receiver? And I would say the answer is yes, because you got to have a guy like a Devontae Adams who you can go to on every third down, every critical situation, who you know is going to get open and who you know is going to catch the ball. An alpha who is going to catch 8 to 10 passes a game for 100 yards and a touchdown. And look, Brian Gutekunst has said, and he's right, history tells you teams with those true number ones don't always win the Super Bowl. And I get that. The Chiefs didn't really have that guy. The Patriots didn't have that guy. But there is value to having a guy like that. And not only do the Packers, I think, need a wide receiver, an alpha in that room because of Christian Watson's injury, but I would say they need one even if he was healthy. Because none of those guys are like that. They're all solid role players, I think, if they catch the ball. And then you have to think, it was great when all 4 of these guys, Watson, Wicks, Reed, and Dobbs, were in their first and second years. But guess what? Now they're in their third, fourth years. They're all going to be coming up on contract situations. Some of them are going to want to get paid.
Then play better.
It's exactly. But it's likely that more than one of them don't sign second contracts with the Packers. So you have to start planning for that right now and backload the position with a guy who can not only contribute right away in place of Watson, but also grow into a potential number one or number two when one or more of these guys leave in the coming years.
Outside of the wide,
don't take a wide receiver from Texas. Name a great wide receiver from Texas. It's like taking North Carolina quarterbacks.
Drake May might be good.
Drake May is another guy that's exactly the same. But anyway, he's going to be the next Trubisky. I go through and I'm thinking, okay, I can't name a great Texas wide receiver in the last 50 years.
No, but you take them from Ohio State.
Then they're all there.
Right.
And LSU.
True.
I'm just saying buyer beware on a Texas kid. They're all fine. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't translate.
So outside of the wide receiver conversation then, what are the glaring holes in Matt Schneidman's opinion that the Packers should probably address with the 8 picks that we currently have this draft?
They need pass rush help. And look, I get that Brian Gutekunst has said multiple times this offseason he thinks they have what they need on the roster to improve their pass rush. And even in the staffing decisions they made this offseason, firing D-line coach Jason Rebrovich, that to me says it's more the coaching than it is the players. But when Goody says in Palm Beach last week that we got the guys in that room that we need. I don't buy it. I don't think he buys it either. And he's not required to tell us the truth up there. But, I mean, you would see Lucas Van Ness have, a couple sacks and then go missing for 2 months. Or Rashawn Gary, look, I get he's getting double teams and chips and thumps and all that stuff, but the highest paid guys at that position affect the game regardless. And then on the interior, Brian Gutekunst comes out after the season and says Devontae Wyatt was our best interior pass rusher. Kenny Clark's making over $21 million a year. He needs to be better. So they probably need more bodies on the interior, but they can use pass rush help wherever they can get it. That's a big need. And then they need cornerback depth. Even if Jair is on the team, Eric Stokes, Robert Rochelle, Corey Ballantyne all sign elsewhere in free agency. Right now, they just have Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Nate Hobbs. And, 2 of those guys are proven outside corners. Nate Hobbs is traditionally a nickel, but he's probably going to play some outside. And then, Jair is a big question mark with regards to, how good the top of that depth chart is. Other than that, you probably need some depth on the offensive line. You saw what happened in the Philly game when Travis Glover and Kadeem Telford came in. And listen, nobody's going to be able to block Jalen Carter, but they need better O-line depth. They're good at safety. I think they're good at linebacker. They're good at running back. An underrated spot I would look at, but there's a reason I'm not running a team, is tight end. I just don't have full trust that Luke Musgrave is going to pan out into what we thought he was at the beginning of his rookie season in 2023. And granted, a big part of that is because of injury. He's been ravaged by injury with the lacerated kidney and then the ankle last season. But, what would help this passing game just as much, I think, as a great wide receiver is a true field stretching tight end. And Tucker Kraft can be that a little bit, but he's more of a yards after catch kind of guy. If you can get a tight end that can just blaze up the seam and make plays, or at least clear stuff out underneath like we thought Musgrave was going to be, that would be very beneficial. I'm just not sure Luke Musgrave will be that.
Note to self, draft Keith Jackson. In all that, what I heard was a lineman and a cornerback wouldn't hurt. So I'm here, Jay. I might take issue, though, when you said you think that they're not in a need situation in most places. See, and I think they need a corner. And I think they really, obviously, again, edge rushers like you want that impact the game are not at 23. Because I think, Trevor knows this, I think Lucas Van Ness is a demon on special teams. And Trevor thinks he's outside of Jordan Love, he's the most important guy.
I did think he needed to have a better season than he did last year. We all agree on that.
He's going to be a difference maker when it comes to. But I just feel like in those positions, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just why I feel like those are always a need position. Like I don't care if I have 2 good ones, I'll take a third. So maybe that. But you believe that because you sound like Goody. I guess we have enough of what we want if we only have wants and not needs.
Right. I think that's what I was saying when I said, they have approached free agency and team building where they don't absolutely need, it's not like they have one starting caliber cornerback and they absolutely need one. When I say that, I mean, they use the draft to patch up holes, not fill craters, if that makes sense. But you certainly need better depth at corner, better depth at O-line. And as we know in years past, sure, you might think, well, what does it matter? They're not going to play. Well, guess what? They are, because you had to rely on your 7th offensive lineman and your 3rd left guard to protect your $55 million a year quarterback with your season on the line in Philadelphia. 2 seasons ago, they're in a win-or-go-home situation in Minnesota with Corey Ballantyne and Carrington Valentine as the 2 starting corners because Jair is suspended and Eric Stokes is hurt. Depth is great. You need depth. So you need guys from that respect. I'm just saying you don't capital NEED those guys because they've done a nice job, I think, filling those gaping holes. You needed a center. You needed another offensive lineman. And even then, you could have just moved Sean Ryan over. But, they signed a left guard and are moving Elton Jenkins over. I'm interested to see how that works out. But, yeah, I would agree with you, John, that I'm not saying, it's just a luxury to draft a corner or an O-lineman. No, they need those guys. It's just not like a glaring in-your-face type of need.
I feel like the entire we're talking about so much of this stuff, what you need. I think the entire dynamic of the draft and everything changes if the quarterback position had played better. I feel like we went into last season like Jordan Love is ready to make the next step, and we enter this one as, oh my goodness, Jordan Love really needs to, and we hope he takes the next step. And I feel like if he's better, wide receivers are better, you win some games, and it's kind of right, like winning makes everything taste better. But I feel like all of this, and I'm not placing all the blame on him, right? It is the position. I'm not mad that he makes $55 million a year because that's what the position costs now. Like buying an astronaut, they're not cheap. That's a pretty good paying job. But I just feel like so much of that, the whole tenor of this franchise right now is antsy because the quarterback we were sold on going into last offseason, we are not as sold on this offseason. Assess.
Yeah, a couple things on that. So I thought after the 2023 season that it was probably unrealistic to expect Jordan Love to play like he did the second half of that season for the entirety of 2024 or even the rest of his career. That was near MVP level. That was near MVP level quarterback play. So I thought it would take a little bit of a dip. It took a little bit more than a little bit of a dip, and you could say it even regressed past that. First half of the season, you can attribute it to injury. I mean, the sprained MCL, the groin injury in Jacksonville, he never really got into a routine of, practicing, playing, and while healthy. I don't think he was a full participant in practice until week 9 going into, was that the Detroit game? I can't remember, but he wasn't a full participant until midway through the season. Second half of the season, his numbers weren't popping off like they did in 2023. And that was in part because the Packers were more of a run-heavy team than they had ever been under Matt LaFleur. So they weren't asking Jordan Love to put the team on his back like he did in 2023. I remember sitting down with Matt LaFleur for the podcast I did with him late in the season, and he said that he thought Jordan Love, before the final couple games of the season he thought Jordan Love was playing the best football of his career. I said, even better than 2023? Second half of that season? He said yes. Because even though they weren't asking him to do as much as he was in 2023, he was executing it to perfection pretty much. And then there was the regression the last couple games of the regular season and against the Eagles. A couple things that Jordan Love needs to work on to get back to top 10 quarterback, because I think he's a top 12 quarterback as it stands, I would say. Half the league would kill to have that guy. There are so many teams with dire quarterback situations. Packers have it good, and I think part of it's because they're a little spoiled. It can be better, though. He's got to improve his footwork. That got sloppy. Matt LaFleur said that in a press conference.
Totally.
And he attributed that to, not getting in that practice routine where you work on your fundamentals. I don't buy that. Jordan Love can just get sloppy with his footwork sometimes. And then another thing I think is, we saw it in the interception he threw against Minnesota early in the season. He did it against, not Arizona, I forget who else, but he did it, Zach Bond in Philly. He just throws it right to linebackers. Sometimes he gets fooled. He's got to use his eyes better to fool these guys. Like Aaron and Matthew Stafford are guys that were so great at deceiving defense, not no-look passes, but just drawing safeties away from plays, drawing linebackers away from plays. I think Jordan needs to do that better to open up stuff over the middle of the field. And then, the health, the footwork, the eyes, if he can improve those three things, I think we see a top 10 quarterback. That doesn't mean he has to be an MVP caliber quarterback, but this team can go farther than it did this year with just a little bit better quarterback play, I think.
And in the first game of the year in Brazil, we've all seen the video. His knee like popped out. It looked like it popped out and then popped out. Like, we got very lucky as fans to go, that could have been the whole year.
Trevor is the excuse maker for the Packers on this. You have green and gold lenses in your glasses that are it's great. You could not have Trevor in the back in the draft room because he'd say, "No, that guy's great. He's going to be great." Trevor's like, "We got everything we need and more." Than Groovy.
Matt, in your opinion, where do we move? Because Goody likes draft picks, and right now he only has one in each round other than 2 in the 7th, and I just feel like there's going to be some moving and shaking. What say you?
Yeah, they've had, 13, 11 picks the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I like 8 picks because we talked to each draft pick on a conference call after they pick them, and it's just a lot of transcribing and a lot of all that stuff, especially when it's like, all right, pick 242, 252, 256.
Yeah.
When we were at the combine with Goody earlier this year, he was phrased a question was phrased by Mike Spofford of Packers.com, and he said, Brian, you don't have as many picks as you've had in recent years. And Goody cut him off and said, yet, I don't have as many picks yet. He loves his picks. So, and then he was asked, well, would you consider trading back out of the first round, knowing the boos it would get from the crowd? And he said, I'm not the one on stage who's going to be announcing that trade. So I don't think they trade out of the first round, but there's certainly going to be some moving and shaking, I think, to probably get some more draft picks, because right now 8 seems like undesirable for him. But then again, I think they've used the last couple years with like 24 combined picks the last couple years to fill kind of the bottom of this roster with youth. Now they can go after more immediate needs and instant impact players instead of kind of casting a wider net to fill youth for the future, I think. Listen,
this is my 70s TV growing up. You can say 8 is enough. That's fine. I know it's we're good with that. So as you say, so the GM on draft day, like that's really the time he either hits or misses. You kind of talk about him off-season free agency. That's like his time of year where people go, oh, we have a GM. The rest of the time, kind of a faceless position. Right. Then it falls to Matt and all these other guys. But Goody, at least in Green Bay, at least I have kind of found, because we are all things Packers all the time, right? Like, what do you mean you're not? I know the Brewers won, but why are we not leading with a Packers story on July 3rd? I'm trying to figure out. You talked about Jordan Love being like in the top 12. There'd be teams to go. I'm trying to think of how many teams would kill to have Goody as their GM, right? Mm-hmm. In one sense, he's certainly built a roster that keeps getting to the playoffs, and it's deep, and there are guys. But then we've touched on what I'm getting at. Name me the best player that Goody's drafted, because I'm trying to figure out where his bell cow guy is. And we go, look at that. And I don't know that we can hang it on, Zach Tom in the 4th round out of Wake, or at least if I'm the GM, that's not who I want. Like, who's my guy? Who do you go? Yeah, him.
That's a good question. And I think I'm with you, John. I'd be interested, and I'm not saying this as an excuse at all. I'd be interested to know kind of the hit rate per se of all the GMs. And I don't know how Goody relates to the rest of the league in that regard, but I was doing this the other day for a story because it seems there is, like I said, some consternation among fans about, are we going to let Goody make another first-round pick? There are 3 guys that he's drafted in the first round out of 8 players, or however many he's taken in the first round, that I think are definite hits, and that's Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, Jordan Love. His guy, I would say, right now, is a guy that might not even be on the team next year, and that's Jair Alexander. I don't think you can say yet, after, half a season of, okay, this is a guy, that Jordan Love is like the next greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, he looks like he's going to be a definite hit, and it looks like it's going to be a stroke of genius because of the controversy around that pick, trading up to get him with 4 years left on Aaron's contract. But I don't think we're there yet. You got to show it over multiple years, not just the second half of one season. Rashawn Gary's an interesting one because, look, he earned a second contract for $24 million a year, and I think rightfully so. But he hasn't taken that next step since then of, okay, despite the chips and the double teams, I'm going to wreck a game. And he's not getting paid as much as Nick Bosa and TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. But, I'm tired. And when I say I'm tired, I'm not tired because it doesn't, emotionally affect me. But I've seen far too much of, well, he's still pressuring the quarterback, even though the sacks aren't there. And coaches saying, well, he's getting other attention. But guess what? You don't hear that surrounding the elite pass rushers because they find a way to impact the game regardless. And if you're getting paid $24 million, I don't care if you're the 4th highest paid edge rusher or the 11th highest paid edge rusher. If you're getting paid that much, you got to impact the game regardless. So it is interesting because you don't have like that guy's a Packers Hall of Famer, but you have absolute hits. Jair Alexander, injuries have destroyed his career these last couple of years.
That counts, though. That counts.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, we would look at Goody's pick of Jair in a lot more favorable of a light, if not for the injuries. And I understand that's part of it, but it would be worse if it was for performance.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. His track record in the first round could be better and needs to be better, because then let's look at the other guys he's taken. Darnell Savage, miss. Eric Stokes, miss. And you could argue that was because of injuries and performance. I think it was more so performance. Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker. I think those two guys are still up in the air. Lucas Van Ness, still up in the air, leaning toward a miss. And then Jordan Morgan, still up in the air. So there are a lot of question marks there. He's lucky. He's hit on a lot of guys on day 2 and 3. But the first round track record is not great.
There's a lot of unknowns. I understand. I hear that
All those guys you named, I think lean more towards the miss than the hit. Quay Walker's been on the field for 1 billion snaps already.
Yep.
Right. And so, and maybe Hafley will figure it out, but all those guys have been out there. And at the same token, other than a little bit, like, I appreciate that Walker's actually out there every day. Now, I don't know, he knows what the hell he's doing, but there's, but, and I say that when you contrast against Jair the last couple of years, when you're not available, right? So at some point that does count. He's out there and he's taken a bunch of snaps until they throw him off the field because he gets a little. But even that, we've controlled our temper better,
yes.
So we're good there. But we're not attacking water boys anymore. But go get the quarterback like he was the Lions' water boy.
My last question. I think there's one guarantee this draft season, and it is that Aaron Rodgers is going to hijack the first round. That Thursday, something's going to happen, and it's in Green Bay, and the Packers and the animosity and all that.
Trev's got a little Aaron Rodgers derangement syndrome.
A lot of. Is he going to hijack it?
Here's my take on that. I don't think so. I go back to when I did the big story on what happened in the 3 years between Aaron and the Packers after they took Love and why the divorce happened. I talked to Aaron on the phone for about 35 minutes in May 2023. And the line that stuck with me most from that conversation, when we were talking about the whole FaceTime thing and not getting in touch with Goody, he said, I talk to people that I like. And he also said, the one person after Aaron came back in 2021 and went on that whole spiel in his first press conference about everything he wanted to see change in the organization, he said the only person who actually made an effort to change was Russ Ball. I honestly think Aaron's only gripe with the Packers organization is with Brian Gutekunst. And even then, I don't know if it still is, because he said years after McCarthy was fired that time heals all wounds. So maybe it has with Brian Gutekunst too. But, Rodgers will go on McAfee and refer to the Packers as we. I don't think he has any animosity toward any players here, the organization, even Mark Murphy, even though he wouldn't trade him in 2021. I think it's just Brian Gutekunst. So I don't think he would do that, which is part of the reason why it surprises me that there at least seems to be some reported interest between him and the Minnesota Vikings. But I don't think he'll hijack the first round of the draft. I do think there is part of him, and I know there have been some reports to the contrary, that he's still holding out hope to play for the Vikings. I just do. But the longer he waits for that, the more likely it is the Steelers find a quarterback, and then Aaron might not have a home. But Aaron said to us a while back regarding the end of his career, he didn't want to go out like a bum, was the exact wording he used. And the best chance he has to not go out like a bum is in Minnesota. So it'll be fascinating. Either way, we're going to get to see Aaron Rodgers against the Packers unless he retires, which is going to be absolute theater this season, I think.
Trev, see, put your arms out and embrace. Trev refuses. Time is not healing a wound for Trevor.
No.
At all.
He's going to be in purple. I called that 3 episodes ago that I think he's going to be a Viking.
But here's my question for you, Trevor. So by all accounts, and Diana Rossini for us has done some great reporting on this, the Vikings like J.J. McCarthy, but they haven't closed the door on Aaron publicly, at least. So what if Aaron's like, okay, I want Minnesota. I'm going to bank on J.J. McCarthy not being great once he comes back from the ACL. Then the Vikings say, oh, we need to give J.J. some more time. Let's go sign Aaron. But then what if J.J. McCarthy's great? And then what if the Steelers have already found a quarterback? Or are the Steelers just willing to be the sloppy seconds the entire time? It all depends on if J.J. McCarthy's any good coming off that torn ACL.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Vikings will sign Aaron and then ultimately move to J.J. McCarthy at some point during the season? Is that could happen?
It's possible.
There's no way he's going somewhere where he's going to literally be a placeholder.
Let his play decide that, because in New York, I don't know that if they had a really, really, really good backup that Aaron would have been given the whole season. I mean, granted, I know he played better at the end of last season than he did the previous beginning part of the season, if you will, and clearly his last season in Green Bay before the Achilles injury.
So that's moot.
I think John's right that Aaron's going to go somewhere where he knows he's going to be the starter for the whole season. I don't think Minnesota would be that place because JJ's going into his second year. They want to see him on the field.
Yeah.
At the first or second sign of struggle, fans are going to be calling for JJ McCarthy. If he goes to Pittsburgh, nobody's calling for Mason Rudolph.
True.
Nobody's getting Mason Rudolph in there. And even if they draft a guy like Shedeur Sanders, you're giving Shedeur the whole year. It's not like you need to see Shedeur right away. So there are pros and cons to both of this. I do think the schedule makers would like to know sooner rather than later so they can put that Packers-Steelers game as early as possible, just so no injury happens.
It's going to be in Dublin anyway. It's going to be in Dublin.
No, it's not.
I think it's going to be in Dublin.
No. I don't think the Packers are going to Dublin, and especially if Aaron goes to the Steelers, because Roger Goodell, over his dead body, would put Aaron Rodgers and the Packers at 8:30 a.m. Central Time on NFL Network.
That's
with
well
all due
put.
respect.
That is well put. That's well put.
All right, here's my last thing, okay? Stand up and show everybody your new house sweatshirt, okay? You don't think I've missed that sitting here?
Let me, can I say one
let's
thing?
see it. Because look, I'm here. I'm going to have to put up my University of Missouri School of Journalism just in case, because I got to fight back. You don't think you just come on here and I'm going to let that go?
Can I say one thing? And
sure. That you didn't get into Mizzou, so you went to Syracuse? Well, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know if you saw this, but when Trevor asked me, we weren't recording at the time, when Trevor asked me to reposition my camera so my big-ass head was in line with your guys, I could have done this, but I lowered it because sure, I'm proud of going to Syracuse, but Newhouse means nothing to me. And literally, this is the first time I've worn this sweatshirt in maybe 6 years. I'm in my childhood bedroom in Wilton, Connecticut, and I have a sweatshirt on because it's supposed to rain. I'm going to the Yankee game later, and my mother keeps my house at 58 degrees, so I had to put on a sweatshirt. But I didn't bring one home. So this was literally the first one I found in my closet. It could have been any other sweatshirt. Let me say this. Okay. I did not, and with all due respect to Newhouse, I did not learn one thing from the actual Newhouse school when it comes to what I do now. Right. All the credit goes to the Daily Orange student newspaper, which is completely independent from the school with regards to where I am now. So I am not the kind of person who will be like, Newhouse, I went to Newhouse. Even though it seems like it because I'm wearing that sweatshirt, it was just, I swear to God, a coincidence that I'm wearing this right now.
I did see you bring it up, and then you moved it down. I'm like,
oh. Listen, they're very good. I'm not mad at anybody. I just was going to fight for my school. But I will say this, you're not doing a lot for people that think that some people that write on the internet are just at their mom in their bedroom at their mom's house. we may not have laid waste to that cliche, which is at least your room's not in the basement. Otherwise, we'd really have.
I own a home in Green Bay. I'm a homeowner in Green Bay for a year now. I'm literally just visiting my parents at home in Connecticut.
Love it.
Listen, I've done this show literally from my mom's basement before in the ground floor. So I'm just saying, sometimes we try to not be in the cliche of people what we think. I've added to it as well. So Trev knows. He's like, come over to the studio. I'm like, no, I can't get out. I'm just going to do it from my mom's basement. So, there
you go.
So maybe I'll see. I'm still thinking of Trev. We have maybe a potential draft change. I was coming up to go to the draft, bring students, except now the two kids from Missouri who are going to be number one picks aren't going to the draft. They're staying around here. Luther Burden's worried he's not going to be taking it, and he doesn't want to sit in the green room the whole time. And Armand Membu, who's going to be like a top 7 for whatever reason, wants to be around his family and everybody there. And I think so now I don't know if I'm going to come because the story's here. And I don't know that that's good journalism training to go, hey, here's the kid that's done all this work on him, and you're going to be in Green Bay and not at the facility where the kid is. So
you don't know if you're going to come or the kids are going to come.
I don't know. Well, no, if the students are coming, then there's no reason for me to come.
Oh,
That's the only reason I'm coming. It's not just a trip to go home and see if I can do this from my mom's basement. I need to have actual work to do. So we'll wait and see.
Right.
Good luck. The town's on fire. Trevor tells me. I think it's really funny how so many people were excited. This is going to be here. We're going to show up our town. And now I'm reading people are like, I can't believe my street's closed and they're bitching. I saw the guy at Kohl's is worried he's not going to sell enough hamburgers. I'm like, dude, there's going to be 200,000 people across the street. They'll probably walk in. But it's kind of funny now to see when it's a reality how many people are getting a little, for lack of a better term, cheesed off by this thing.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I'm doing a story that'll run Monday of draft week just about how the smallest market in the league got the draft and then is planning to execute. I think I'm talking to Mark Murphy next week for it. But next week when I get back to Green Bay, I'm excited to go down and see how it's all kind of coming together. I know, it is certainly unique with the stage in the middle of the street and residential houses all around the area. But yeah, Kroll's, maybe with the closures now, there's a lack of business, but I think they'll make up for it in draft week.
We'll see.
I think it's going to be just fine. Matt Schneidman with The Athletic. Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review. Smash the like button. Just get with us. J.A., some birthdays are worth celebrating. Miller Lite has one that I think is worth celebrating. What is it? The 50th anniversary is the golden anniversary. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah. Silver is
golden
25.
anniversary.
Yeah, good.
The 50th anniversary of Miller Lite. And shocker, it's in the exact same can, I'm pretty sure, that it came out with 50 years ago. Just new liquid.
And it was golden. And yes, so is that pour. Oh, look. Liquid gold. I love it. I'm surprised that you even know about Miller Lite more. I think about it because 50 years, you have not reached there yet. I don't even know. I guess since it's still current, it's a current event since it's still going.
Because it came out before. Yeah, this is the reason why right there. That can, that beautiful little 16-ounce can. I think it's kind of neat, though.
It is. They literally invented, not only did they make this, beer and the whole taste great, less filling, right? They made one of the all-time great advertising campaigns.
True.
They literally invented a whole new product market. Everybody has a light beer. Everybody's got something. And it's because of Miller, right? So they, not only was it 50 years, but they spawned an entire, literally industry within the industry from that little white can there. And then be 50 years later and still kind of be the leader in the industry.
Absolutely.
Hard to do.
Brewers home opener. Loved every second of it leading up to the Bob Uecker tributes and stuff. And they took a huge banner and up in, I believe it was the right upper field. They must be replacing seats or something. Did you see this? They took all the seats out and they put a banner and it says,
makes sense.
I must be in the front row. That's what it says on there.
Like
crazy. How insane.
Yeah. Great.
Miller Lite's been around 50 years. And that, I think that goes to a lot of Wisconsin, right? I mean, Miller Lite was started here. It's still brewed here. It tastes like Miller time. So many of those things literally happened from Bob Uecker and also because the damn liquid's good. Let's just be honest.
Right. Yeah. I love that. That's very much an industry term. The liquid. You got to have the liquid. Okay.
The liquid's good. The liquid's good. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin to find purchase options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, time for another top 5 list here on the Inside Wisconsin Show. As always, presented by our friends at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. Discover excellence at UW-Platteville with their renowned engineering and STEM programs offering a cutting-edge environment and over 60 majors to choose from, exciting clubs, organizations. There's always fun happening on campus. Discover why UW-Platteville is a smart investment. Apply now. UW-Platteville.
There is always fun stuff happening on campus.
There's always fun stuff happening. I've been there, done that. It's a blast. I had a really good time. All right, top 5 list time. There's some debate. There's some debate on how Goody has done with his draft. And so you and I talked off air. Not a lot. Not a lot. I just don't think there's a lot.
It's like the OPEC nations just produce some oil.
Well,
and Wisconsin produces some cheese. I feel like there's more, but okay. Good of you to tamp it down.
But I think it's an expectations thing. If we look at the lists that we've put together, our top 5 Goody draft picks, who are the 5 that we can hang our hat on? I had a difficult time coming up with the top 5, but much like you, there's always going to be a top 7 or 8 or A, B, whatever it is. You go first on this. I'll compare my list to yours. Who are the top 5 Brian Gutekunst draft picks?
Okay, so after 3, I was sort of out. I don't even know. Like, does Rashawn Gary make your list?
Yeah, 4.
Does he? Because I feel like he's an underachiever still. Like, he got there and they got the money, and I don't think he's jaked it because he got the money. I just don't know that he's had the impact where I go, yeah, this is my guy.
He did blow out his ACL, you remember?
Okay, we keep talking about that. And Jair Alexander got hurt. And but then that affects if that person is a good pick or not. Christian Watson, is he a good pick right now? I don't know. He's not been on the field. That matters.
Yeah.
You got to at some point produce.
But at some level, I think Rashawn Gary was on his way to a unbelievable career. I just think it took a back step, if you will, a step back and then forward. All right. So Rashawn Gary is my number 4. Is he on your list?
So the idea is, though, regardless of all those things, and I agree with you, injuries hurt, all these other things. But then the idea, though, is you just have to produce. Did you produce or did you not produce? The why doesn't really matter. To me, it's a binary thing. You either do or you do not.
It would be tough to argue that Rashawn Gary hasn't produced.
Okay. He's
not number 4 on my list. He's not on your list. Okay.
He's not on my list, but I think because I'm just trying to be stubborn. So on my list at number 6 is Evan Williams.
Okay.
I think he's been a good pick. Only a year. After that, we go through. By the way, you know who else is not on my list? Quay Walker's not on my list. Devontae Wyatt's not on my list. This is a shocker. Andres Carlson's not on my list.
Okay. Woof. It was a whiff. It's okay.
Lucas Vaness is not on my list yet.
He's my 5B.
Jamon Moore is not on my list. Friend of the program, A.J. Dillon, not on my list. These are guys that we drafted we thought might be great. Number 5 on my list is Tucker Kraft. Have you heard of him?
He's number 5 for me as well.
Okay, good. We agree. Wait, did we agree on something?
Chalk it up.
Yeah, don't tweet that one out. Don't send that out. People will never watch the show again. Number 4 on my list is quarterback Jordan Love.
Ooh, number 4?
Number 4.
Ooh.
What's he done better than that? Okay, I'm just telling you. This is hard.
He's my number 1.
Number 3 is a coupled entry. Zach Tom.
Okay.
And Josh Meyer. I just like guys who are playing on the offensive line. Josh Myers, I think, right?
Josh Myers, yeah,
played a lot. Zach Tom, right now, he might be number 1 with a bullet.
Number 2,
Jair.
Yeah, it's tough.
Where do you have him?
He didn't make my list.
How come? Pro Bowler. You're going to make my point for me. Pro Bowler, great when he's on the field. Why is he not?
I don't know that you can look just at athletic performance in regards to how they fit in the locker room, and I do not think Goody saw the problems that Jair has brought off the field before he was drafted. That's it.
Guy plays, he's really good.
Mm-hmm. Who's your number 1?
Number 1 if you could play more. Number 1, Eglinton Jenkins.
Okay.
I think he's the best pick he's made. He's played all over, right? He's had some injuries there too, but by and large, I think he might be the best player. He took him second round on Mississippi State. I think he might be the best guy that they've had. It was tight between he and Andres Carlson, but then Carlson eventually. The more I thought about it, he's not number 1. And then when I thought about it more, I thought, wait, he might not even be number 50. So anyway,
and boy, did I stick up for him via text message, did I not?
Edgerrin Cooper could be there. He's closer to the list than not. So
well, we at least mentioned all the guys that were on my list. That makes me feel pretty good.
That's better than we usually, and then we agreed on one.
Yeah.
Should we apologize for that? I don't even know.
I'm probably gonna cut this up and pin it to the top of our Twitter that we agree. Yeah,
right there, perfect. Then just send some Joe. Just put some Joe Thomas stuff after that. The point is, here's the larger point. I think not cut it there. I think the larger point is it's hard to find some of these people. There's not a cut and dry. And you don't go Justin Jefferson, or hey, here's Josh Allen. And it's hard to find a clear-cut number one. And I think it's hard that it's put the list together speaks to that. Now, it's the nature of the business. Nobody bats 1,000. It's kind of funny. Also, we when you hit 300 in the majors, everybody goes, that you're expected to, because it's hard to do that. I think if you can hit 300 in the draft, that's probably not terrible.
It's not. So we only grade drafts on who's on the team and doing things today. Not the guys that were here 2-3 years and were really, really good, hit free agency and signed somewhere else. So I think we have to justify our top 5 list of those that are still on the team today. Because there's guys that were here, whether it was drafted by Goody or Ted Thompson, that were really good here and then moved on somewhere else because we couldn't afford to keep them. And Brian talks about that. He said everybody looks at free agency as guys that aren't on the team. What about the guys that were free agents that are on our team that we signed back? That matters. Just saying. Lucas Van Ness is going to have a breakout season, and now I'm cutting it there. People are in town for the draft, JA, and they're hungry. And I know there's restaurants, but there's also a number of different festival foods for them to choose from. Go to Festival, grab all the food, maybe a Miller Lite or two, and stock your fridge. That way you don't got to worry about it.
You could have a wait at some places, but if you're Airbnb-ing it or whatever you're going to do, you get one of the party houses. Of course you need. Listen, how are you going to have a festival or be festive without festival food? It's in the name.
There's a reason.
This is going to be a football festival, a draft extravaganza. And, at some point you're going to be like, this is just going to be easier to open the fridge in the house that I'm in and, cut up a wedge of cheese as opposed to trying to get into some restaurant to get a wedge of cheese.
If you're hungry,
people.
Yeah, if you're hungry, they can help. It is about convenience. Conveniently stock your fridge at Festival Foods for the draft. And I know that there's a lot of people that chose to stay here for the draft that are in Wisconsin, that are in Northeast Wisconsin specifically, that chose not to rent out their house. Good on you. Good on you. I appreciate that.
Or go to Festival. But they rented their cabin up north, 68 miles from here.
There's that. They got a lot of money for it. Oh, amazing. If you're in town for the draft, whether you're here or coming here and staying here, make sure you hit up Festival Foods. If you're hungry, good news, they have food. And it's amazing. There's a number of different Festival Foods in the Green Bay area, Appleton, Oshkosh, wherever you're driving from. Festival Foods is in your backyard and has you covered. Why? Because they're the official grocery and tailgating headquarters of the Green Bay Packers.
Thank you.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. If you're going to do a draft special, you go to the guy that owns Cheesehead TV. No brainer. Aaron Nagler joining us on the Inside Wisconsin Show. What's up, Nags?
Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
We're good. I'm always curious in any of this how it is that draft talk drives as much traffic as actual game. Like you've been in the game for a while. Like what this has become. When they drafted Ron Hallstrom, I don't remember this kind of a storm around things. Or even when Bruce Clark got drafted and didn't come and went to Canada, I don't remember these things. Trevor, do you remember when Bruce Clark was drafted?
Don't.
There you
go ahead.
Right, but like are you ever shocked just
yes.
the volume of content you need to produce on the draft?
Constantly. Every year it seems to get bigger and bigger, right? And I don't know how that's even possible. Obviously, you guys know the NFL has done a phenomenal job of making sure that they are a going concern 365 days a year. And the draft is a major tentpole in the offseason. They've pushed it back as far as they can. I do really not love those days when they had it in May. I mean, at least they've settled into the end, usually the final week of April. But yeah, to your point, man, it's all about months and months of draft content, draft talk, who's going to go, who are they looking at, who's on their radar, etc. Who fits, what are their needs? I got to tell you, at some point, I think I hit it about 2 weeks ago. I just go cross-eyed, and I'm, you've talked about the same 6 or 7 dudes over and over again. I actually did just have a lovely conversation with Emery Hunt of CBS Sports about guys you haven't heard of 1,000 times already. That was essentially the hook for the video. But yeah, it's crazy. And it is nuts to think that back in the day, and I know you guys remember this, you would just get together with your buddies for the weekend, right? And just kind of disappear on a Saturday into a Sunday, and that was it. And then you read about it on Monday morning in the paper.
Yeah.
But now it is legit like people's jobs 365 days a year. And I can't really malign it because it allows Cheesehead TV to exist, right? The fact that there is that interest, the passion, that real driving kind of curiosity about who are the next members of the Green Bay Packers. So I get it. I love the passion and the ferocity of the fandom when it comes to who are the Packers going to select. But man, they could have drafted 3 weeks ago and we could be on our way by now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and then along that, because you fill so much content, I feel totally confident in asking this because everybody asks about the number 1 pick. I want to know who you think they'll take in the 5th round at 159.
Cam Scatterbo. They're going to shock the world. I love him. I don't think the Packers are going to take him, but I actually love that player, and he's the first one I can think of off the top of my head who would probably fall in that range.
Okay, good.
But I love that player. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. Right. Great player. Great player.
Next 18 years for you guys, you and Corey at Cheesehead TV, and literally now the draft is in your backyard. Corey's physical backyard, the draft
Seriously,
will be
right?
in. I know you're going to be here, but as a lifelong Packers guy who's dedicated his life to doing something Packers-related content every single day, what does it mean to you to see it in Green Bay?
It's still a bit surreal. I was talking to Corey about it yesterday, and the idea that it's coming, right? It's so close now. The draft stage is up and being built, and like you said, it is literally in Corey's backyard. It is still a little surreal, and I think, obviously, when I get there and I see it, it'll become a little bit more realistic. But it is crazy to me to think, you guys remember old Lambeau, right? The corrugated iron, the facade before the 2003 remodel. To think that building and that kind of footprint is now going to host the, biggest event outside of the Super Bowl that the NFL puts on. If you had told me as a kid, riding my bike around Lambeau Field back in the day, yeah, no way. I would have said that's impossible. It's crazy. And now here it is, and it's going to happen. And what's so fascinating to me is you talk to anybody associated with the event. The NFL has got it down pretty good as far as city to city. They know what to expect. Oh, here's the footprint. Here's how it's going to work. We know, etc. And they put it like, whether it's been Kansas City, Detroit, Nashville, Chicago, they've known what to do and it's worked, right? But you can sense when you talk to the NFL people and the Packers people and anybody associated around or with the event, this is so unique because of the size of Green Bay, because of the setup inside. I mean, plop in the middle of a neighborhood rather than some kind of downtown urban area. You can just tell no one really knows what to expect as far as the vibe and how it's all going to flow. And I do think, obviously, the NFL knows what they're doing. They put on huge events at each and every kind of minute, seems. But there's something to this particular event in Green Bay, Wisconsin that feels both very special and a little, we'll see what happens.
Trevor and I have talked a lot about this, and Trevor's keen on it. What will people who are not from Green Bay think of Green Bay? I want to go the other side. Do you think Packers will get it when the Jets draft a tight end and the people go crazy? Right? How will we react to some of these other fan bases that roll in?
I think it'll be open arms. It'll be like a game day. I'm sure you guys have heard this, but there does not exist. There hasn't been a fan base that I know outside of maybe Bears fans, but even they get, razzed in good nature for the most part. But everybody I've ever met who is a fan of another team that goes to Lambeau for a game talks about how incredibly nice and welcoming and open all the Packers fans are. And to your point, I've been thinking about the fact that all 31 other teams are going to be represented at this thing. I think it's going to be a week-long tailgate party. I really do. And I do think, obviously, you're going to boo the Vikings picks, and you're going to boo the Bears picks, and that's going to happen. But for the most part, I do think it's going to be a really welcoming, open, warm kind of embrace of the NFL. And the fact that so many people talk about Lambeau Field being on their bucket list, well, here you go. And not for a second do I doubt that Packers fans, whether in the official draft footprint or even around that area, you know, whether you're talking about the neighborhoods or the shops or whatever, the bars, etc., man, it's going to be a really good vibe. That's I just think people are going to come away from this really happy that they decided to go, because I know I've talked to a couple people who have been like, you know, the flights, you got a connection flight, or you got to drive up, or you can't find a hotel, or etc., that have kind of kept some people away. But I've also talked to people who are like, I don't care about any of that. I got to make sure I'm there. And I think those folks are going to be really happy they committed to it.
I just thought of this for the first time. Yes, Green Bay Packer fans are great at welcoming in, right? But it's only one team at a time. That's all we know. Like, hey, how are you, Philly? Good to see you. And so whatever. But I feel like there's going to be a moment where we're all like, hey, how are you? Welcome to Green Bay. Good to see you. And then there's going to be an Eagles fan and a Steelers fan beating the piss out of each other. We're going to be like, oh, boy, you not real big fans of each other, are you?
I think there'll be a peace offering in the form of a beer and a brat, and people will be fine. I really
break it up. Hey,
exactly. A lot of that, no doubt. Packers as peacemakers, no doubt.
So what should we expect as Packer fans? The draft is here. Goody has 8 draft picks as of today. What do we expect from a Packer fan sitting back watching this in our backyard? I
mean, I don't suspect that it'll be too dramatic as far as, you know, big trades or surprising picks. I think it seems like every year we get to the end of the draft and we'll go, yep, that was a Packers draft. As far as, you know, they'll probably go defense early. I do not doubt for a moment they'll come away with at least one wide receiver, but it won't be selected in the first round, and people grouse about that. And but I do think, you know, this draft in particular, the draft class sets up pretty well, not perfectly, but pretty well as far as their needs go. But the thing to remember, and like, it's a draft and you're very excited and you can't wait to see who they select. But this is something that I've been kind of the drum I've been beating for this last couple week or so. The thing to remember as fans, especially of this team, of the Green Bay Packers, the way they run things, guys like Evan Williams or Edgerrin Cooper are going to have way more to say about the fortunes of the 2025 Green Bay Packers than anybody they select in the draft this season. You know, and it's not to say that these guys can't come in and help. They certainly can and probably will. But this is a team that is set up for draft and develop. And the develop part, especially from year 1 to year 2, is where you really find your core. You find your guys that you're going to, you know, kind of build around and become long-term parts of your program. And obviously we saw real great flashes from Edgerrin Cooper. We saw good stuff from Evan Williams. Marshawn Lloyd is a total kind of mystery after not basically playing all last year. So Jordan Morgan clearly played a little bit, but had to deal with that shoulder. And it's a weird juxtaposition because, like I said, I know people are excited for all the new players, and we're going to get there, right? But last year's draft class, and even the last couple of draft classes, are going to have way more to say about the success of the 2025 Packers than anybody that gets selected in this draft.
That's why Trevor has Lucas Van Ness on the doorstep.
There you go.
He's waiting to walk through for greatness, aren't you?
Yeah, we're all kind of waiting for that one.
Yeah, I get it. What John is getting to is that I said Lucas Van Ness was going to have a breakout season last year and be one of the more important players. Whoops, wrong.
And then every time he did something well, man, my phone would blow up. Now,
this is also true.
Right? Now, luckily, that happened 4 times.
I was just going to say, it wasn't a common occurrence.
So, you know,
no.
All right.
No.
So we have discussed draft philosophy, and you talk about their draft and develop. The draft and develop. Once in a while, when they have some money, they have done some free agent things. But I think along that line, then too, is we shouldn't be stunned if we see a shot at a defensive lineman, a shot at an offensive lineman, and a cornerback. Because those are I think
premium positions. Yes.
If you put edge rusher, tackle, cornerback, and quarterback, right? Those are the 4 food groups of the draft.
All right.
And I don't see them drafting. And since the quarterback looks like that's probably in good shape, I don't see them, you know, snacking anywhere other than, you know, vegetables, fruit and cereals or whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. I think you're going to continue to see, you know, last year we called it a meat and potatoes approach, as far as what did they get? They got a offensive lineman, they got a linebacker. I mean, these are things that are the cornerstones, right, of your team. And every time I start to talk about the draft like this, right, like, well, it's obvious this is what they got to do and this is where they're going to go, I just go back to Quay Walker being selected after years of talking about, they would never take an off-ball linebacker in the first round. They haven't done that. That's not how they operate. It's been like the Blake Martinez's of the world in the fourth round. That's how they're going to do it. And then boom, there's Quay Walker, and I'm completely dumbfounded. So while I very much agree with everything you just said, every once in a while they throw you a curveball, and you're really kind of left scrambling. To that point, I remember when Quay was selected, we produce a draft guide at Cheesehead TV, and we're very excited about it. We're pumping it up, and we're talking about it as we're leading up to that selection. And then Quay gets taken, and he's like, I think, our 5th inside linebacker. And everyone on the chat was like, what the hell? Like, it was pandemonium. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you never know. Like, they're the eye of the beholder, what they're looking at, what they're seeing as far as the athletic upside, how it fits into whatever defense they're trying to put together. Man, it is in the eye of the beholder. So I think you're right as far as I fully expect defensive tackle, offensive line, corner get addressed at some point. But I'm not going to be shocked if they kind of throw me a curveball.
If, along with, just the endless amount of draft talk there is, what's next on your hit parade of most things discussed? Why is Jair Alexander still on the roster, or are we taking a wide receiver?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I think this year in particular, it's probably Jair, just because he is so singularly positioned and interesting and very excellent, obviously all-pro type player when he's on the field. Just hasn't been on the field. So it is fun to see the reactions when you do talk about. We just actually did a video a couple weeks ago about this. And people are very strongly, on one side or the other as far as he can't stay on the field. It's time to get rid of him, or, he's too good. You can't let him go for nothing, etc. You just got to work it out. And look, I totally understand both sides of it. The wide receiver thing, it's hilarious because it's like, I feel like I could, and I kind of have done this, but it feels like I could make the same video or write the same article.
Sure.
And just, press the button every year, because it's like this. And the other fun part is that every single season, somebody talks to me like, you know what? I know they never do it, but I got a feeling this is the year. And it's like, no one's feeling is ever right. It's always just feelings. But hey, I'm excited at the idea that they could do it for the first time since Javon Walker. But I suspect I'll be in a nursing home by the time they actually pull the trigger on a wide receiver in the first round.
But why do we feel that way? Have we forgotten where Donald Driver came from in the draft, or Jordy Nelson, or anybody else that's ever been drafted by the Packers that wasn't Javon Walker in the last 10, 15, 20 years?
If there's a team that's, got the pelts on the wall and shown that they know what the hell they're doing at the position, it's the Green Bay Packers. And I'm not talking just this kind of iteration. I'm talking generations, right? But I understand it. And I think some of it is driven, I won't say all of it, but some of it is driven by, most poignantly, the Jordan Love selection instead of a T. Higgins or somebody who could have helped Rodgers immediately, right? I do think there's some residue there. But this conversation existed before that occurred, right? I think some of it is what John was talking about at the start. The fact that we've blown this up into a 365 thing, and people are so aware of these players, and they get attached during the draft process. And that's something I talk a lot about as far as don't fall in love. You fall in love with these guys, you're only going to get your heart broken on draft weekend, and that happens every year. So I do think, people see the big, explosive, really great wide receivers on offer in the draft, especially early, and they want some of those toys, and when the Packers don't do it, they get all upset. But again, if there's a team that's shown they know what the hell they're doing at that position, it's the Green Bay Packers. I'll never, ever, ever forget a couple years, obviously before, it was right in the mix of Cheesehead TV when Greg Jennings was drafted. And I remember that draft process, the hot name was Chad Jackson, who every Packers fan was convinced had to be a member of the Green Bay Packers. And then the Patriots pulled off a trade and got him instead. And we had to, quote, settle for Greg Jennings. And, Ted Thompson was an idiot. And, he totally blew it. And we missed out on the great Chad Jackson. And then Jackson, I think, flamed out in a year. And Greg Jennings went on to become one of the greatest producing wide receivers ever in the history of the green and gold. So, yeah, I acquiesce to the Green Bay Packers front office when it comes to the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and they've had their best success, right, when they took Sterling and Lofton were both really high. They weren't 20s picks, right?
No,
so that's
yes.
kind
But
of
that's
like
the
those
other thing.
guys,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
so much has to be where those guys are available. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
Again, see, I might as well be talking about freaking dinosaurs in the Ice Age because I'm not sure. Trev, do you know who Barry Smith is?
I don't know why you keep doing this to me. No.
That's who the Packers picked as a wide receiver in 1973. And he
Yes.
lasted how long? 5 minutes?
If
Right,
that.
he
Cup of
was
coffee.
Yeah.
I only know about it because I've read about him. That's the
Thank
only
you.
reason I know about him.
I was 8 when they took him. Like,
I
oh,
was-
cool.
no, I was just being born.
They took Barty Smith and Barry Smith, consecutive first. One guy was a Florida, and then the other guy was a running back from Richmond, of all places. And they're like,
How excited were you, though, when they traded for JJ? Because we were talking about that last night on the Cheesehead TV happy hour. Like, when they traded for Jefferson, I thought we were going to the
they
Super
were
Bowl.
on their way. Yeah.
Yep,
Although,
100%.
Kills me when you get rid of Willie Buchanan, who was
Yep.
probably my favorite Packer as a kid all
That's a
time.
tough
When
one.
that was tough. Because I don't think there's never a pick that makes anybody happy. And if it is, I feel
Ever.
like I should be wary of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like you're just like,
That's a good
ooh,
That's
I don't know
100%.
that I want to suddenly, right? But all of a sudden you're there, and then you're like, wait, no, do I want to agree with everybody? I don't think that's,
No.
when everybody in the joint says we should run it on fourth down, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, and then you run on fourth down, and everybody goes,
And it gets
why don't
stuffed.
you
And
just play action that thing. So there's sometimes the herd mentality is not.
surely you're not suggesting that Packers fans or NFL fans are, results oriented in their analysis. Of course you wouldn't. You would never suggest that.
Never. So this is, this doesn't come up in this draft, but am I happy with the quarterback situation right now? Love and Malik Willis.
I mean,
And
I am.
Clifford on the outside.
I'm sure there are plenty of vocal Packers fans, maybe Rodgers stans who aren't, but I am. I think you don't have to look very far last year and compare it to what Jordan Love was doing, especially down the stretch the year before, and see it wasn't quite the same player. And he's admitted as much as far as dealing with the knee and the groin and how it affected him. But I thought, he was on point in his interview with, I think it was Kay Adams at the Super Bowl, when he talked about everyone's hurt, and the expectation is, especially after you get that contract you got, the expectation is, as the leader of the team, you're going to be out there. And so he was out there, and he probably came back a little too early. That Minnesota game was hard to watch, but yeah, I think there is zero doubt in my mind they're set at quarterback, and I love that Malik Willis is around for another year. I think the temptation might be there if someone calls to pull the trigger on a trade, try and quote get something for him, but I think he's way more valuable to them sitting on that bench in case something were to happen to Jordan. I think he showed that last year, and now a whole offseason in the program, to actually kind of learn the offense rather than whatever they were doing on the fly last year. I think they're in a really good spot. And I still, all that said, I still suspect they take a quarterback on day 3. Brian, I asked him about it point blank at the combine, as far as, are you still in on this? Because he had talked last year about wanting to get back to drafting quarterbacks every year.
Yeah,
he did last year, but he cut him. So are you still in on this? And he was very clear. He's like, yes, I very much believe in it. I still want to do it. Now, obviously, the board has to fall the right way, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of this draft with a quarterback on day 3.
Plus, he had 11 picks, which is helpful. Which
it makes it easier to make that selection, right?
If I go to I want Vegas to give me this prop bet, because right now they have 8 draft picks,
right?
And I think by the end of the draft, they will have 10.
Okay, I
so
can see it.
in the end, the Packers will have more draft picks this year, or Jordan Love will have more interceptions.
Oh, that's painful, because I'm going to go with interceptions. Unfortunately, I think he's got that little Brett Favre in him. He's not afraid of trying to make something happen. And for all the greatness, there's still that young quarterback thing he's got to work through. And I suspect that will continue a little bit.
Okay.
And look, I don't think he's like a problem in this area. I really don't. I love Don Mikowski gave a great interview last year about like the idea of knowing when they've won the down. Right. And as a young quarterback, you always think, I can still win the down. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And we saw him kind of go through it a couple times last year. But I do think you also see some of the amazing throws and the plays where he's zinging it in there between or just over someone's fingertips, etc. Man, I don't ever want to neuter that. I don't ever want that to go away. That's why I pay the money to watch the game, And the other problem, of course, is he's following a dude who is like all time in taking care of the football. So the comparison is always going to feel a little heavy as far as, he's way too turnover prone. Well, okay, yeah, some of the turnovers are egregious and that has to be taken care of. But as far as the amount he does it, he's probably going to do it a little bit more than we like. But I don't want to neuter his play style in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I always think of that when I always thought the key with Aaron was that the down always ended on his terms. Whether he was running out of bounds, whether he was
great way to put it. Yes.
Aaron Rodgers always ended the down on his terms, and Brett never wanted to end the down ever.
Ever. It's so true.
Right?
That's
and I think that's sort of the difference in some of those stats and how they were. But I always thought Aaron, no matter what it was, even if he lost 3 yards, the down always ended when Aaron Rodgers said the down was over.
It is a really, really good way to put it because it's very true.
Brett was not really always that way
at all. But hey, well, and of course the other comparison was we talk about this all the time on Watch Party. Like when Brett was back there and he threw the ball and the camera would pan, and you as a fan kind of always clenched up a little bit because you're like, I don't know if it's going to my guy, their guy, you don't know who it's going to. And then when Aaron comes along, you only ever kind of freaked out when there was an interception because it never happened. Yeah. And now we're with Jordan, and we're kind of back to the camera pans, and I'm like, okay, all right. But like I said, young quarterback growing pains. I'm here for it. I get it.
Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV on the Inside Wisconsin show. Nags, you're coming back, and I know you and Corey have some really cool stuff planned for the draft. What do you got going on?
Absolutely. The night before the draft, on the 23rd, we're having a meetup downtown Green Bay at Stage 1. It's a free event. Just stop on by. Carry the G. Our beer is on special. We've got giveaways, Cheesehead TV merch and stuff like that. And a couple surprise Packers guests are going to be rolling throughout the evening. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And, the fact that we're this close and I'm going to be in Wisconsin for the NFL draft is absolutely nuts. I'm so excited.
Super pumped. Thanks for joining us, man. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
See you, bud.
One thing that I don't think America is prepared for is how much beer we drink at all times of the day when it comes to the draft. There will be people tailgating at 8 a.m. with Miller Lights in their hands, probably not in the Lambeau parking lot, I guess, but everywhere else in line for what is the NFL draft. It's crazy.
So what you're saying is Miller time in Wisconsin, a little tougher to pin down than in some other places.
The whole it's 5 o'clock somewhere thing used to work. Not here. Doesn't matter.
No, it's 8 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock for? Yeah, it's 8 o'clock somewhere.
15 somewhere, or it's 3:27 somewhere. Yeah, I'm with you. There are a few times, right? Like I think maybe post like 2 a.m. to 4 is probably safe, or 2 a.m. to 6, maybe 3 to 6 is probably safe. But it's we're kind of, when it comes to beer drinking and Miller Lite, we're kind of like those convenience stores. We're open 24 hours a day.
Bar time here, at least non-draft, I don't know if they're changing. It is 2:30 on the weekends. Friday, Saturday, 2:30. The good bars down on Broadway by the paper mills reopen at 6 a.m. Why? Because third shift dudes get off and they go right to the bar. And let me tell you, if you think you have fun in normal times in Wisconsin, go to the bar when the third shift paper mill guys get off at 6 a.m. It is a riot.
Yeah.
Really good time.
And it's not as prevalent as it was when I was a kid, and I see it all the time now. I'm like, didn't there used to be a bowling alley there? Right? They used to have third shift bowling leagues too, so guys would roll out, and at 6:30, let's lace them up, get an alley, and let's go. And I don't know that that's a thing as much as it used to be, but yeah, when you have an industry like that works all the thing, and this is from a guy who worked overnight a lot. I say overnight, I was out by 3 a.m. It's not quite the same. Yeah, the clock we're not always a slave to the clock. Sometimes we can bend the clock to what we need, whether that's a bowling ball or a Miller Lite. It's, we can, we'll get it cleaned up and we'll be ready to go. So those fellows get off and can have a place to relax and unwind.
Miller Lite is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and a lot of special moments, whether it's anniversaries or parties, has Miller Lite involved, and the draft will be no different. Just you pick the time. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin to find purchase options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
We want you to do a whole lot more than just save money. We want your money to grow, just like your dreams. We want you to achieve financial well-being and the feelings that go along with that. Capital Credit Union, doing the right thing.
Well, good news. After all that, none of us have a freaking clue. There we go. You're welcome.
All right, but that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why we do it, right? That's why people do it. It is the intrigue. It's why people fill out brackets for the NCAA tournaments, because they don't know. They think they know.
You said episodes ago, though, all of this to read the name of somebody off of a piece of paper.
That's what we're doing. We're just picking up cards and off we go. Yeah.
March Madness, there's games happening. We fill out brackets to watch games.
There is
all of this to go, hey, man, here's your hat.
Here's your 3x5 note card.
Yeah, have a good one.
What are you wearing? Oh, that's fantastic.
Crazy.
And now it's literally the thing about Green Bay is, like you said, this is right in Corey's backyard. Like everybody feels like it's right in their backyard. Maybe if you're on the far east side, but for most part, it is.
Mark Murphy asked if I was going to rent out my house. Like, no, I'm going to be here. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to be. So be it, man. Just don't bitch. If you don't want to be here for it and you're upset about it, then don't. Goodbye. Goodbye. Okay.
People at Augusta, Georgia learn how to live with the Masters every year.
Until you pee in the creek.
Yeah, that's a whole different animal.
Everything went sideways. Here for it. All right, Jay, what's the latest in the world of John, Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about Lambeau Field, and I don't know if this is the right word, my relationship with it. Because we all think of it as, here it is on Sunday. You go to the games on Sunday. And I think of all the other things that I have done in and around that stadium in my life.
Yeah.
And to think that you're like, wow, that's because so often we just drive by it. Yep, there's the field. We just think about it, But also from my time in the East Coast, you'd drive by, I'd go to the city all the time, and there's MetLife Stadium. And you're like, I don't think people in New York have the same relationship with their town, their team, and their stadium that we do. Or even as you drive by in Philly, or even go by, when I was in Phoenix, it's out in Glendale, because it's just out there. And so I think, well, sure, I went there for games, but then, you also saw the Shopko fireworks that used to be out there. And that was a major deal to go out and see those. Or I can remember my sister who marched in this drill team, and I'd go see shows there. That I don't think people go to and can get into the Giants parking lot just to skateboard on the one piece of asphalt that's there. People, I don't know anybody my age, Trevor, and I know you don't even think we had cars, but we did. But everybody learned to drive a stick shift in the Packers parking lot, around the gravel, because it was big enough to drive and pop your clutch, and you could and nobody complained, and you could learn and you could make mistakes there. That I could just walk to it. That I could just walk over to the stadium. Now I couldn't walk like Byron because it took him 38 seconds and it probably took me, 13 minutes. But that it was
I talk about that a lot. My kids go to school across the street from where Byron grew up, and with the G in the scoreboard.
Right. If your kid someday could go, you know what? Let's just go play in the Packer parking lot.
Yeah.
Right. They could have done that. They have a little spot there. I know where that is. But and even though there's Sparky's, it's not far to walk. And if there wasn't anything, now it's different. But all that stuff. And so I just keep thinking about, or that I was there and you'd ride your bike to practice, all the things about it, and just how unique Lambeau is, and the relationship almost all of us have in some way with that stadium, one way or another. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully, bringing some students there, and they're probably going to get tired of me regaling them with stories, but I think they're going to be shocked to see what it is, where it is, and how it is not just this building, this edifice, that it has this, even if you don't realize it, because it's there every day, this impact it has on your life. That I spent hours there just killing time skateboarding. That's literally where I learned to drive a stick shift. Or people, you had that happen when you're, in my case, people go, well, I don't know if you can drive my car. It's a stick. And I'm like, totally, I can drive a stick. Learn to do it at Lambeau Field, And so I think, and I'm kind of warmed, and I don't know if that's if that's a list or if that's anything anyway. I just, as the draft comes, I think how important that place was in my life sometimes without ever walking into it and getting a film from the Ice Bowl for 8th grade from Lee Remmel. Like, who the hell? And so
when we moved here 20 years ago.
And all those things have nothing to do with the game on Sunday.
Right.
Because I've been great ones of those too. But all these other touch points, that makes the place so special, so meaningful, so impactful to me, and I think the people that are in audience and the people who live in Green Bay.
When we moved here 20 years ago, it was not lost on me immediately that on my way to or from work, I was driving within sight distance of Lambeau Field, and it blew me away. And to this day, we teach our kids, do not take that building for granted.
Yeah.
The fact that you live here. And I think that's my message with the draft. Don't take this for granted. It's coming here because of how incredible this is and how incredible Lambeau Field is and the history of the Packers and the NFL literally coming through Green Bay.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit of a detour, for lack of better terms, but man, this is special. Absolutely special.
Yeah. And Aaron talked about like when it used to be, because when it was just this corrugated green thing, right? And that's where I remember it too. But, every time I went and got gas for my car, we did it at Bob's right across the street, which is no longer there. It's an ice rink, or maybe it's a sledding hill. Right. But every time you went and got gas, you just sit there, right? You're filling it up and you're like, oh, look, there's Lambeau Field. Like, it's incredible. All the different things that it does and all the emotions it sparks in me and all those things that to some degree, I wish your kids would be able to have because they won't have the exact same experiences we did. But, it's not John Wisconsin. It's kind of John Lambeau. And it's just,
so be it.
But there's all those things. And I'm glad people are coming. And I hope people realize this is, yes, there's some inconvenience, but it is a chance for us to show that, there's a reason it's New York. It's the smallest league in the market, but it's there and how integral it is to the NFL.
When Amanda and I got married, we got the advice on our wedding night before the dance part of it was over, just to step back and just look at all the people that came here for us. I can't wait to do that for the draft. There's going to be a moment on Thursday night where I just step back and go, holy shit. This is unbelievable.
I have done that with, because I've been fortunate and I'm trying to not humble brag, but people with Olympic moments. And I'm like, I get you're in the middle of competition, but you ever take a minute and step back and go, wow, this is the Olympic Games, and then focus back in, right? Do you ever do that? Trevor, we made a joke when we got a brick for my dad out when he was still very much alive, to put out in the stadium. We're like, what should we put on it, right? Wally, True Heart, Green and Gold Heart, blah, blah. And I'm like, how about Lindahl's to Lambeau, right? Or Lambeau to Lindahl's, because that's the funeral home. It turns out when he passed away, right, we go to Lindahl Funeral Home right off of Ridge there. And then we literally had his reception wake afterwards at Lambeau Field. It was close. Everybody could get there. And so, like, there's another thing. That has the least amount of things to do with the game. But we're like, my dad would be happy. He'd be happy that this is where we're going to come celebrate his life, is at Lambeau Field. So I drone on. The place is special, and hopefully I've listed a few reasons why. And I hope people take a bit of that away with them that come to visit. And I know I am not alone in the things I say in terms of that, because everybody's got a relationship with it, and it makes it unique, and it makes me proud all the time to go, yeah, I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Mic drop. As you were at Wisconsin. We'll see you next time. Obviously, the duct decor throughout the entire thing, down to the chandeliers and the lights have ducks.
When I first opened, I gotta admit, I had one duck dish on the menu. I thought, okay, we're the duck in, it gives us an idea of the motif in the place. I didn't think we were gonna sell that much duck.
Farmers, brewers, hunters, packers, badgers, cheeseheads, neighbors. No matter what name we go by, we are bound together by our roots. These are the people, the stories, and the patriotism from inside Wisconsin. Welcome to Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Another episode of Deeper Roots brings us to the Duck Inn in Delavan, Wisconsin. Jeff Carbash is the owner. Jeff, I think we both met our wives here. Maybe we should start there. My wife worked here through college. I've been coming here for over 20 years.
I would say it was probably her second day maybe, or her third day, was probably December 5th of 2002. And we were sitting back there at a table, and at the end of the training night, we role played with the servers. We're testing her, and my wife stopped in. And she called me up to the waitress station, and she sort of whispered, she goes, I just got back from the doctor, we're gonna have the baby tomorrow. So December 6th, 2002, my first daughter was born.
Wow.
So that's why I'll always remember your wife in training.
I found out today that my wife wrote the history for the Duck Inn website. Right. She do that like December 7th of 2002?
Oh, I don't have the exact date. I'm not that good, Trevor.
There's something special about that, though, and I think it takes a lot of patience and shows your professionalism to be able to work with college kids.
Yeah, but your wife she was good. She had a caring interest for, you know, the part-time job here while she was going through school, and she mentioned she was a history major, and I said, oh, I got a project for you.
Tell us about the history of this place, knowing I don't think you owned it then?
I didn't. It was established in the 20s, and it was the far west dining room, and the bar was in that little breezeway that connects the far west dining room and the current bar now. There was multiple owners. It started with Bloomquist was the original owners. They were Swedish. Years ago, the Chicago Tribune had a deal where you would get one lot in Lake Lorraine Skansen subdivision if you had a year subscription to the Chicago Tribune. And then after you had 4 lots, you could build a cottage. Well, the Bloomquist built the Duck Inn, and they had little one-room cabins, I should say, where the current bar is, and they started it. And then Prohibition hit, the cabins turned into warehouses, and it turned into a pretty rough bar. And then after Prohibition, you would see a lot of supper clubs start up, because what happened there was the cities would allow liquor licenses, but they wanted them out of the municipalities, but you had to serve food. So then you would have your fish fry special on Friday, or prime rib on Wednesday, or roasted chicken on Monday. That's how sort of supper clubs evolved.
Did you name it the Duck Inn, by the way?
No.
It was named that before?
It was named that before, and it was named that before Prohibition.
So it was a supper club all the way back then.
Back then.
Maybe what's your understanding of what a supper club is? I think it's only a Wisconsin thing.
I would say the building it has to be sort of an original building or location. A relish tray on the tables, a Friday night fish fry, Saturday night prime rib. Open primarily just evenings.
It was named the Duck Inn, and I guess you were fairly required to keep duck on the menu.
Yes.
And that's really what you're most known for, would you say?
I would say, yes, it is. When I first opened, I gotta admit, I had one duck dish on the menu. I thought, okay, we're the Duck Inn, it gives us an idea of the motif in the place, and we'll have a duck dish, and I didn't think we were gonna sell that much duck. Now we have 3-4 different types of roasted duck.
Obviously the duck decor throughout the entire thing, down to the chandeliers and the lights have ducks, and there's a duck decoy literally everywhere. I think if the phone rings, it's a duck quack. There it is.
Yeah. There's the quacking duck.
There's something else that you do very unique here, and it is blue cheese stuffed olives for old fashions. Amanda has taught our boys how to pull the pimento out and stuff blue cheese with a spoon.
We had a customer that was coming in, and this is one of the things that's great about the supper club industry. And he saw us painfully, you know, we had this little blue cheese stuffer where you pack the cheese in and you hold the olive and you shoot it down. And he saw this, and he developed a piece of equipment for us out of a caulk gun. He made a stainless steel cylinder, a screw-on cap, and a plunger, and you put your cheese in this, and then you just squirt the cheese out and you go from olive to olive. Now I have learned, if the cheese comes out of the refrigerator and it's really hard, you get Popeye forearms. You know, it can be really difficult.
So why'd you get into it? And it was over 30 years ago now? You've owned this over 30 years?
Nobody wanted to hire me.
So you hired yourself?
I hired myself.
Congratulations.
I worked my way through college in restaurants, primarily in the kitchen. When I got out of school, I was actually trying to get out of the industry a little bit. And I was managing restaurants at the time, and I thought, I want to own my own. I was tired of being the ping pong ball where you're dealing with the ownership and you're dealing with the staff, and I wanted to make my own decisions.
It's one of the finer, most well-known supper clubs in Wisconsin, specifically here in the southeast portion of the state. What has kept you in it for 30 years?
Well, for me, one thing I always liked about the restaurant industry, if I was in the kitchen or the front of the house, you come into work and next thing you know, your shift's done. And I think it's because of all the people around and the pace that you have to keep going. It is the people and the lifestyle that you get with running a facility like this. And then as time goes on, it gets even harder to leave.
I have spent a time or two at your bar, and I feel like you make old fashions differently here.
If you walk in the bar, you don't realize that bar was completely gutted down to the studs in 2019 and rebuilt. We were having trouble with things falling through in the floor and the coolers just all busted up. I want all new equipment back here, but I want the same feel like you're walking into a place that was here since 1940.
Tell me about the fish tank behind the bar. What's that?
The old bar had like a scene with a pond and a duck and a little waterfall. And then there was storage underneath it. And for all the years I'd be sitting here, having a cocktail at the bar, and I'm like, if I ever redo this bar, that pond has to be flowing down into a fish tank. I thought that would be sort of a really cool idea. And when we gutted the bar and all the workers were in here, they all thought I was nuts. Why is he putting a fish tank on the floor? But now that it's done, it's pretty cool.
Something about a supper club bar and old fashions, which I think are being made. Probably brandy old fashioned sweets. Cam, what do you think? Brandy old fashioned sweets?
Brandy sweets, that's the name of the game.
Brandy sweets, the name of the game. You make really good brandy old fashioned sweets. I'm only gonna have 1 or 4. We'll see. What is it about a supper club bar that's so special in Wisconsin?
I think it's a very cozy, homey atmosphere. And a lot of them have the wood decor similar to this. You feel like you're in your grandfather's den.
Dark.
Yeah.
Not necessarily well lit on purpose. What about this place is haunted? What's the story?
We've just had different experiences. Is anything comes to mind recently?
Recently, when we lost Joyce, we've been here for a really long time.
Yeah.
The lights flickered in the bar area.
Really strange. Joyce was a waitress. She was our main waitress in the bar, and that's where Amanda probably remembers just one waitress. Over the years, Joyce and I would be talking, and I said, well, if you go before me, Joyce, give me some sign or something. And she goes, oh, I'll flicker the lights. And never paid any attention to this. Friday night we worked. She couldn't wait tables any longer. She was getting up there in the years and was having difficulty with that. So she was cashiering for me, and I'm showing her what she's gonna have to do as a cashier. She goes and leaves. I close the restaurant up. I come in here, work in the restaurant. We go all night. I go take Francisco home, one of our dishwashers, and I come back. There's Cam and Eric. And I'm like, well, why don't we have one drink before we leave? And the bar lights started going off, and then I'd hit the switch and they go on, and then they'd shut off again on me. And I go to the switch and they turn on. I'm like, what the heck? And right when I was saying I'm gonna have to go and shut the breaker off and get an electrician here, it stopped. So I went home, fell asleep. The next morning, my wife comes in and she's like, Jeff, freaking out. She's like, Joyce died yesterday. And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it because I didn't even know she passed away. And I'm thinking that night she was messing with the lights.
That's incredible. You remember Joyce?
Yes.
Were you here when she passed away?
No.
Okay. Have you heard the story about her flickering the lights?
No.
Did you ever have any haunted things happen to you here?
No, but it always felt weird.
That's your fault, Jeff. Bye. There is a lot to say about a good old supper club, but also about deep-rooted stories. And I think that's why we wanted to come and tell this story, Jeff. You've been doing this over 30 years, but this thing was a speakeasy in the 1920s. You may not know this, but in that speakeasy room that we were talking about, we actually had our engagement dinner. Our whole family came out. We announced to my grandparents that we were getting married on their anniversary, which is April 26th.
That's cool.
And it's a huge part of my story. I mean, I didn't meet Amanda here, but yeah, cheers to that. Yeah, we love this place and everything about it. Dug in, waddle out. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having us down.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to tell the story.
Thank you.
Gotta play the duck machine. Winner every time, right? Get to play until you get one. Yeah, the big duck's not gonna come out. Okay. Not so good at the duck game. Come on. Yeah. Got it. And you sell more rubber ducks than roasted ducks.
I think we probably do.
Hey, I'm holding the phone up to the mic for the podcast. You'd be disappointed to hear that they have a new way of stuffing blue cheese stuffed olives.
No.
Yeah, they use a caulk gun now.
That's crap.
Raising an old fashioned to only our second Supper Club episode somehow here on Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Especially grateful for the opportunity to sit down with Jeff, share the Duck Inn's incredible Supper Club story with you all, and reconnect with some of my own deep roots here as well. If you want to make your own lasting family memories at the Duck Inn, do so as I have. Here's what you do. Head online to duckindelavan.com or give them a call to check menus and hours, and be sure to follow along on their Facebook and Instagram pages for regular updates there too. If you've been following Deeper Roots for a while, you know we're always on the hunt for our next Deeper Roots guests, our stories, so be sure to nominate some friends, family, even yourself. Head to our website, fill out the form, farmandfleet.com/deeperroots. Lastly, don't forget to like and comment below, smash that YouTube subscribe button, and if you are listening on the podcast side, leave us a 5-star review, would you? Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin Platteville.